Hey Facebook, it's 2 o'clock here in New York and you're with us on Facebook Live. I want to talk about pyramids. The pyramids in ancient Egypt are one of the wonders of the world, and there's a whole bunch of metaphors there. So let's go into it right now. The first metaphor, obviously, is that a lot of labor that was forced, went into building these huge edifices, and that being a cog in a system where you are not eagerly enrolled sort of sucks. The second thing is that the pyramids are huge, but weren't built for any particularly good, useful function, and as such represent pretty much a waste. And the third thing is that the number of people who actually planned the pyramids was very small. Most people who worked on the pyramids were at the bottom. Well, that might sound like where you work. So let's go over it bit by bit. That we have all these big institutions that have plenty of people in them who are cogs in the system, who are sitting there grumbling, working at the checkout desk at Avis Rent-A-Car in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, or busy answering the phone saying, I know you're unhappy, but it's just not my job. Or that have to grind through a whole day of emotional and physical labor without much in the way of reward or dignity or respect. I'm opposed to this, and I've devoted a lot of my life to trying to help people stop doing that. The second thing is that we now live in the richest economy in the history of the world, that everyone who's watching this has more resources and more leverage than the last person who was the king of France did, that we have access to more medicines and more technology and more oomph to create impact than anybody who has come before. And yet, too often we waste it by saying, my boss won't let me, or it's good enough, or we're stuck. And then, to finish the pyramid riff, is this idea that as an organization gets bigger, lots of people end up in the middle. And as Lawrence Peter wrote in the Peter Principle, people get promoted until their level of incompetence. And once they reach their level of incompetence, they get to stay there. So by that math, sooner or later, everyone in an organization above a couple levels is incompetent. And that explains bureaucracy. Well, Dr. Peter was being cynical on purpose. He was trying to be funny. But the thing is, we can do better than that. And the question is, if you're not the boss and you work for an institution, what are you going to do about it? Where are you going to find the leverage? And more important, how can you make things better? Because if you're not going to be able to make things better, I think you've wasted your day. So that's my theme. I'm going to riff on it a little bit. First, I want to welcome you again. We've got Maya on the control board. We've got Sam doing the Q&A over here today. And I want to also, in addition to thank you for coming, apologize to my friend MPD. I'm aware that the books behind me are not to your usual standard, and you are welcome to come up to the office the next time you're in town, because we always need your help. So with that said, what we want to talk about today is the altMBA, what it's for, what it does, and its role in helping people who call themselves middle managers to do this work that matters, to get themselves on the hook, to make a difference, and to have leverage. So in the other room, I wish I had a copy here with me, I have a very rare book. It was a bestseller in the 1920s, all about pivot men. It was written by a guy named Seth Godin. Seth, it turns out, was Al Capone's accountant, which is quite a claim to fame, lived in Chicago, and it was a book filled with memos about what it's like to be a pivot man. Pivot man means you're pivoting from the person you're managing to the person who's managing you. And I have a bone to pick about the word manage. I think manage is different than leadership. Management is getting people to do what they did yesterday, but faster and cheaper. It's about compliance. Leadership is helping people get to some place that we all want to go. Leadership is pathfinding, going somewhere when we're not exactly sure how to get there. And I hope you can agree that we have a surplus of managers and a real leadership shortage. And so the secret output of the altMBA, the thing that makes it different from all of those courses that say, here are these magic words and these PDFs and these videos that are going to tell you something you don't know, is we're a leadership school. And leadership's really hard to teach because leadership is something we have to learn by doing. So that's why there's no videos in the altMBA. That's why the altMBA puts you into groups with projects where you do things and teach yourself what it means to be a leader. So there we go. I'm going to take your questions about the altMBA, big and small companies, and what it means to show up to work with a different way of approaching it. This is going to be a sort of a shorter session. I think we'll probably spend 20 or so minutes on it, but I would love to get your feedback on this, and we'll answer your questions as we go. Okay, Sam?
Yep. All right. So
my nightmare, by the way, I have many nightmares, but one of them is I'm going to have a great riff like this one, and then Maya or Sam's going to say, oh, it wasn't working the whole time, but we didn't want to interrupt you. But as far as we can tell, it's working.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Happy Friday, everybody.
All right, this one's from Sarah. Will the altMBA make me better at managing my colleagues and communicating with upper management?
So Sarah wants to know if the altMBA will help her manage her colleagues and communicate with upper management. I gave a speech the other day, and one of the people in the audience asked a question, which is basically, I'm going to paraphrase it here. Millennials, damn millennials. How can I get more out of them? And I said to the guy, well, I think part of the problem is the idea of getting more out of people. Because that model is based on the industrial mindset of corporate titanhood, which is that there are workers and there's labor, and our job is to extract maximum effort from our workers. And then we wonder why workers want to give us the minimum effort. Well, they want to give us the minimum effort because they know they're going to have a negotiation, and the compromise will be an okay amount of effort. But that's not what happens in high-performing organizations. In high-performing organizations, people are itching to contribute because they get something out of it. Not a raise, not an hourly bonus. They get out of it the emotional satisfaction of making change happen. And too often, companies and bureaucracies and nonprofits get hung up on control and on having it turn out the way they want, as opposed to enrollment and making the change they seek to make. Here's what I know about baseball, which is very little, but what I know about baseball is if you say to a 9-year-old, here's a big, thick book of baseball statistics, please memorize all of them, and if you're good at it, I will let you memorize more. No one will become a baseball fan. The alternative is to take someone to a baseball game. And if they get into it, they're going to memorize the stuff all by themselves. And then they're going to ask you for more stuff to memorize because they're into it. Which means that our job as managers is to figure out how to become leaders instead. How to gain enrollment. How to get people to see what we see, to want what we want, to believe what we believe, to be on the journey we are on. And the way to get our bosses to do things that work for us is not to ask for more authority, not to demand the authority to tell other people what to do, but to take responsibility, because that's available in unlimited quantities. That when we take responsibility and own what we seek to do, we have a chance, if we're on the hook, to make a thing and own the outcome. And it turns out that if you take responsibility and make a mistake, in most decent organizations, that's a fine thing because you made a mistake in service of the thing you promised to do, and you took that responsibility, and so you'll get a chance to do it again. And if you work for the kind of place where that's completely unacceptable, let me be daring enough to encourage you to work somewhere else.
All right, this one's from Eddie. What makes the altMBA different and valuable for today's world?
So Eddie wants to know what's different and valuable. So let me try different first. Education's been changed more than almost anything I can think of in the last 10 years. Because access to information is now not the point. That 20 years ago, if you wanted to learn something, you had to go to a room or to a book and spend time and money to learn it. Now, anything that's taught, you can learn the information online for free. Every single class at MIT is available online for free. So if you can get the stuff that's in the class for free, why go? Because Because you get other things. You get other things in the room. You get this feeling of interactivity and fellow travelers on this journey, that you get this chance to change. And change, real change that works, is super scarce, super rare. I'm guessing that in 2014, you watched more than 30 YouTube videos. Maybe you watched more than 30 YouTube videos in one day. Can you remember them? Did they change you? Now, think back to an important moment you've had at school. No matter how many years ago it was, you still remember it, because that's what we remember. We don't remember who taught us what year the War of 1812 was, because it didn't change us. But we really remember who was present the day we learned to ride our bicycle. We really remember who was present the day we figured out how writing could change somebody else's mind. Change is what matters to us. That's what education is for. And so the altMBA was reverse engineered by me to do that. Not to match a school, because it doesn't match a school. But from the first minute, before we even begin, when you get your first email from Sam, we're trying to change you. That's what we do. And if we engage with you on something, if we build a project, if we put you in a cohort, if we have you in a Zoom room, if you're engaging in Slack, if you're talking to your coach, if you're talking to your other coach, if you realize that your coaches are all alumni, if Kelly gets involved, and on and on and on, every single one of those things is not to get us accredited, because we're not accredited, and we're really happy that we're not accredited. It's not to get you to buy something else, because we won't sell you anything else. It's to get you to change the way you see, to change the way you carry yourself, to change the way you make decisions, to change the way you get other people to go along for the ride. That's what we do. And I'm hoping that people will copy what we do, because there's a lot of change left to be done. I don't need to be the person who's making all the change. I just care a lot that it gets done and that we figure out how to use this moment in time to do work that's worth doing. Boy, am I ranting today or what?
You're on a roll.
I'm on a roll.
You're doing great.
That sounds very nice. She could have just said I was ranting, but she said I was on a roll.
All right, Joel.
Joel. Hey, Joel.
Does the altMBA offer any projects with real-world stakes?
Do we offer any projects with real-world stakes? That would have been an interesting way to approach it. And maybe I'll build something like that. I have no idea if it'll work. We've seen these things where you do a stock market simulation and the winner gets some prize. Or we see things where you have to go into the real world and actually do things with human beings and compare to other folks. And done right, they're not stunts. Done right, they actually can work. But ours is a little more abstract than that. Yes, we want you to engage with others who are in the course and not in the course, but it's not a scavenger hunt, nor is it a treasure hunt. That what we've tried to do is make it the safest possible place for you to try out this other way of being.
All right, this one's from Ross. In an organization that employs 10,000 people, how can I stand out? How can I make a difference when there is so much bureaucracy? So
Ross wants to know, in his 10,000 person organization, how does he stand out? How does he make a difference? Here's an exercise that I've tried. I did it as recently as a few weeks ago at an event I was at in Canada. Excuse me. So the idea is there's 12 people at the table. They're part of a cohort. They're peers. And I say to them, all right, take out a Post-it. Maya, you want to do this? Sam, you want to do this? Take out a Post-it. And here's what I want you to write on it. We're going to start a new team within the organization. So I'm going to have 3 people on the team. And they're going to get the best cookies, the best snacks. They're going to work on the best possible new future project. You can have any 3 people on that team you want out of these 12 people. Write down the names of the 3 people out of these 12 that you want on the team with you. So everyone starts thinking about it. And as they start writing, I say, okay, you don't have to write. It was just an exercise. Here's the question. The question is, when you thought about this, how many people do you think are going to write down your name? Of the other 12 people around the table, how many would instantly decide to put your name down? Because that's the question, isn't it? Right? Isn't it? Isn't that the question? That you could come to work and always be the person that everyone would want to put down on that sheet of paper. Not because you're competing against the other 11 people, but because you've decided to be the generous one. You've decided to be the leader. You've decided to be the reliable one. These are decisions. This isn't how you were born. It's a choice. And in a company of 10,000 people, you will never be known by all 10,000 unless you commit a felony. No, you don't care about 10,000. You care about 12 or 30 or maybe 40 people. If there are 40 people who would put you on their list of 3, you're in. That's what we're trying to teach you to become. One of the 3.
All right, this one's from Evan. I've been trying to get my company to buy into a new software that would affect a large number of employees. How do I get them to not be afraid to take the leap? And would the altMBA help me do this?
Thanks for fighting a good fight, Evan. So the question was trying to get his company to buy into a piece of software that would make a big difference to the organization. This is super hard to do, and we cover this a lot in the marketing seminar. And the idea is that there's a curve. It's called the Rogers adoption curve. And what it shows is that different people want different things. Some people want the latest version of Linux on their laptop. Some people watch all their movies on a DVD player. Some people still have a 12 flashing on their VCR. It depends on how you think about technology and change. And one of the most difficult things to sell to an organization is a piece of software that everyone has to use. A piece of software that's going to change things. Because the laggards, the people with the 12s, the people who don't like technology, all they can think about is something about this software isn't going to be perfect. And the people who I forced to use it are going to blame me. And the people who I gave this software to who can't do that one thing they depend on, that's all they're going to focus on. So that's why adopting software from the top down is so hard. If we look at the growth of Slack, Slack has grown almost entirely from the bottom up because the person who starts using Slack doesn't have to force others to do it. She just starts using it. And then she tells 1 or 2 other people and they start using it. And the next thing you know, the CEO is trapped. She has no choice because everyone in the organization is already using Slack. Top down is much harder because it's all about fear. That what you're selling isn't the benefit. What you're selling is the avoidance of failure. And that person you're selling to doesn't think they have a software problem because they're busy telling themselves, the software I have now isn't broken. Don't fix it. So how would you sell that? Well, I would argue that you need to bring the impatient and unhappy voices into the room with the decision makers. I would take my smartphone, my little video camera, and I would go interview 10 or 15 or 20 people in the organization. And I'd put it right on them and I'd say, tell me how this software is hurting our customers. Tell me how this software is hurting our sales. Tell me how the software we have right now is wasting your time. And one by one, these people are going to look at the camera and say, that software I have to use every day, it's costing us 10% of our customer base. That software I have to use every day, it's undermining what I'm trying to do. And then I would edit together all that software and I would show it over and over and over again to everyone on the decision-making committee. Because your problem isn't that they don't see the benefits of switching. Your problem is they don't see the pain that the current software is causing them. And if you can be that person who can paint that picture, then you're going to make the people who are currently holding you back so uncomfortable with the status quo that they will acknowledge they have a problem. They will become enrolled in the journey that you seek to go on. That's part of the art of selling within an organization, of leading instead of managing.
All right, we're going to do 2 or 3 more.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sam.
All right, so this is from Lauren. I want to learn from people who are not in the corporate world. We're made of the same mold. Will the altMBA expose me to people who are different than me?
So Lauren says, want to learn from people who aren't in the corporate world. Well, I have a lot to say about how different people in the corporate world are from each other. But first, I want to point out that we have a deep, abiding commitment to the nonprofit world. Between 5 and 10% of our students come from Acumen, Room to Read, Pencils of Promise, Kiva, the Red Cross, on and on and on and on and on. I think that work those humans do is super important, and their point of view really helps move things around. Also, 25 to 35% of our students are freelancers or own their own business as small entrepreneurs, so their voices are in the room too. As far as I know, we have no classical pianists, nor do we have any professional jugglers, but we're looking for both. In general, I think that what you're going to find is that with 45 countries represented, with people with vastly different ages and experiences ranging from 20 to 74, you will be able to work with people who aren't the same old. That's a commitment that we make inside the altMBA, and we've been able to keep that promise for 15 sessions.
All right, this one's from Joel. Joel again.
Hey, Joel, again.
Yeah. How can the altMBA help artists grow professionally?
The question is, how can the altMBA help artists grow professionally? So, Joel, I'm assuming you're using the word artist the way I use it. An artist is a human who makes something new, who tries to make change happen, who does it with generous intent to make somebody else better. So Jackson Pollock was an artist, Frank Lloyd Wright was an artist, but so is a technology innovator who creates a chip that's better but scary until it's adopted. And what I have found is that artists hold back. And we hold back because we don't know how to talk about what we do. We are afraid of the implications of what we seek to do. That being able to see the world as it is helps us bring the right ideas to the right people on the right day. Knowing that there's an abundance of ideas, an abundance of innovations, lets us be careless with our generosity. It lets us tell stories to people who want to hear them and be smart enough to walk away from the people who don't. So I'm an artist deep down, and I love artists, and I'm hoping that this will inspire you to make more of your art.
This one is from Patrick. I'm currently up for a promotion at my company. I'm up against
Good job.
I'm up against 5 other candidates. Will this course help me stand out?
So Patrick, who's up for a promotion, here's what we have found. This is really scary. A lot of people are afraid to tell their boss they're taking the altMBA. A lot of people are afraid to apply. They don't want to apply because they think they'll get rejected. And somehow we got taught in 12th grade that getting rejected is horrible. And they don't want to tell their boss because they're afraid their boss will think they're getting uppity, or they're afraid their boss will see that they want more out of their job. Well, the bosses I know would disagree with you. That what she wants to see is that you care enough to raise your hand. That what she wants to see is that you are choosing to level up. I would guess that 10 to 15% of the people who graduate from the altMBA either get promoted or know that they deserve a better job and go and get one from somebody else. Because this is not about your ability to run a spreadsheet, nor is it about your ability to do the Black-Scholes option pricing formula. That what work is the ability to see yourself and to see the world around you as it truly is. To cut through all the stuff you're doing that wastes time, all the conversations you have that go nowhere, and become the person that we would miss if they were gone. And if that's the person you can become, with or without the altMBA, I don't care, you're going to get promoted. Maybe not this time, but soon, or else somebody else is going to hire you away. When you become the kind of person that is already acting like the job we need you to do, promoting you is way easier. Should we do one more, Sam?
Yes, one more. All right. I've heard.
Before we do the last question,
yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about the dates and how's the application cycle looking?
Sure. So our 14-15.
Yeah.
The early decision is on July 27th.
Okay, so that's a couple weeks.
Yes, and the 16-17 is open.
Okay, so 16-17 is going to happen in January.
Yes.
And
January 15th.
January 15th. So it's snow up here in the Northern Hemisphere. The current session that we're taking applications for, 14-15, it looks like we got plenty of applications, so we're definitely going to be full, but we do have room for some people if they want to apply right away. Yeah?
Yep.
And when it comes to applying, don't sweat it. Just tell us who you are. We trust you and you should trust us. Tell us who you are. We would love to hear from you. And when you get to the site, there's a place that you can get some emails from us, and those emails over the course of weeks will teach you everything that we think people need to know before they take this leap. Okay, so thank you again for spending a sweaty Saturday with us at HQ. What's our last question, Sam?
All right, the last question. Is this a good place for networking? I see this as being valuable in itself, especially in the corporate world. So
the question is the altMBA a good place for networking? No, it's not. I could tell you about the woman I was speaking to last night whose freelance income has tripled as a result of someone she met in the altMBA. And I could tell you about the person who got a new job because someone in one of their groups hired them. But no, do not come to network. You are not supposed to pitch other people. It doesn't happen inside the altMBA. After the altMBA, you will be part of a community of 1,500 or more people who trust each other and care about each other, and that might change your life. But inside the altMBA, it is not a cocktail party, and we don't do any networking. So I hope that was clear. We would love to have you because we want to see you level up, and once you do, the networking will take care of itself. Anyway, I'm Seth Godin. That's Maya on the board, Sam on the board. We're really glad you guys came onto Facebook. We're happy to answer your questions as we go. Most important, by far, even if this isn't for you, I know you can make a difference. That this work that you are doing, you can make it matter. It's not just a job unless you make it that way. Thanks. Go make a ruckus.